Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm so pleased to be joined by Keeley Hawes, who plays Prince Andrew's private secretary, Amanda Thirsk, in the new Netflix film Scoop, which you can watch right now on Netflix. Keeley, for the other actors here, like Gillian Anderson, Rufus Sewell, they're playing incredibly public-facing figures who are very well known. Amanda Thirsk, maybe not as well known, certainly to the general public. So I guess in terms of your preparation for the part and stuff like that, where did you start?
Yeah, I had a much easier time of it. Well, it's different. There is always a responsibility that comes with playing a real person, whether they're well known or not. Whether they have a public identity or not. You still have to be incredibly respectful. Not everybody is up for having their private life made into a Netflix movie. So yes, I felt a certain pressure with that. Amanda Thirsk, who I play, is a very private person. There isn't very much online. She hasn't written. There's no autobiography. There's no. She's never done a podcast. There's a little video of her online where she's giving a speech for the company that she worked with Prince Andrew on, Picture Palace, and so that was on Twitter, which is now X. So we had a tiny bit of footage of her. But really, I spoke to, it came down to speaking to Sam McAllister, who wrote Scoop, which our show is based on. And she she'd got to know Amanda really quite well. And so I was able to get more of a sense about Amanda from Sam, really, than anything else. Yeah, I hope that sort of comes across. The people who do know her, I've spoken to them since, and they've been very encouraging in that it is something of a truth as much as possible. That it is a truthful portrayal. So that makes me feel a bit better.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely that makes it sound harder than maybe not that you're competing with Rufus and Gillian, but I'm like, oh man, that's it's difficult, right? Because you have to be respectful, like you said, but you don't actually have so much information maybe to go on. So I think you nailed it. I would say based on that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And people, I have felt that people have felt very sympathetic actually towards her, and I do think she is a sympathetic character. I certainly don't feel judgmental towards her. I think she did, she made the decisions and she did what she did and she gave the advice that she gave, and it came from a well-meaning place. So
I'm glad you mentioned that. I actually was I'm fascinated by that aspect of the performance because it's so the audience knows that this is going to be a calamity, right? The interview is going to be a real disaster, for lack of a better term, and not going to go very well. But so your character is is pushing for the interview and believes that it's going to be the right choice. And so you're behind the audience, but watching it, I was like, man, I think she's right. Maybe it is going to be good. You know what I mean? You're able to maybe trick me.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think when you watch the film, and it was the same feeling, reading the script was exactly the same thing. It sort of read a bit like a thriller, even though we all know the outcome. People across the world, we all know the outcome we know what's going to happen. And yet it reads like a thriller. You're thinking, oh my God, are they going to get it? Are they going to do it? And there's real jeopardy there, and that's what makes it work so well. I mean, I got the script and I sort of thought, well, I had an idea of what it was about, obviously, and I read it thinking, well, why would you make this? Because we know this interview so well, and then actually it becomes very apparent. It's about these brilliant women and the wonderful, incredible journalistic work that they did, and it's actually about them. So that's the important story that's being told, at the heart of it. So
you mentioned how Amanda's relation and how Sam knew, obviously, was familiar with Amanda, obviously, and spent much time talking to her, we see in the film. In terms of you and Billy playing these characters, how did you guys kind of think about the relationship, and how did you work with her to get that to feel exactly right?
Well, we didn't have very much rehearsal time. We had our read through, our table read, and then we all sat in a room and did some page turning of the scenes, but not rehearsal exactly. We talked about the characters and we talked about their relationships, and Sam was there. And we also had an advisor from Buckingham Palace who was able to help us with etiquette and answer any questions that we had, which was really useful. Because it's all it's a world that we know nothing about, that we can't know anything about, and that's part of the reason I think why it's so fascinating, and why The Crown is another great example of a show like this that works so well, because we're getting a look behind the curtain, as it were. And as much as we feel like we know the royal family, we feel like we know celebrities in this day and age, actually we don't at all. And so when we feel like we're getting a look literally behind the curtain, that's what makes it doubly interesting.
When you got to speak with like the advisor, what you mentioned, like what was the question you had? Like what was the first thing you thought like that you were excited to ask? I guess maybe just about Amanda or something else. Yeah.
He was brilliant, very very open to anything. I mean, I think that there's no questions that he's hasn't ever been asked. And he was also on set, and he would say, well, here the scenes that were set in Buckingham Palace with me and Billy, he would say, well, you would have a footman there, or you would have, somebody to do this, and the sorts of the way that the palace is run, and so all of that is very authentic. And in terms of their relationship, as I say, Sam was there, and she was able to tell us about actual conversations that they'd had. And Sam is very fond of Amanda. I think they were friends. I believe they were. I believe she would call Amanda a friend. And they felt very warmly towards each other. And Sam is such a brilliant woman. She's just incredible. She's bright and incredibly articulate and amazing in many many ways. And so I sort of thought, well, yeah, you'd have to be a pretty decent sort of a person to be friends with Sam, actually. Yeah. But I kind of came away with little things like that, so Billy and I, we got on very well. I've never worked with Billy, which is probably quite a good thing, because sometimes when you work with someone or you know them very well, you can be, it does translate on screen, and you can be very relaxed. And actually it was quite nice going in, and on the first day we had a big scene in the bar, and so you are sort of finding out what the other person is like in a way, right. And I think that all helped with those scenes, because they're so cagey with each other. I feel like that's part of what made them work really well. We didn't know each other at all, really.
That's funny, yeah.
And she's brilliant, but it kind of adds to that when you first start working with someone. You can kind of use
like a real authenticity then in that case, right? When you're like in that, like you said, like cagey, like kind of feeling each other out.
Yeah. And you can use it. You're like, well, I don't know how this person's going to work. I don't know, on set people are work in many different ways, and quite often it can be quite useful. They're not, they are two people who are meeting for the first time. They are both being cagey. They both want something from each other. So I really enjoyed those scenes. I really enjoyed working with Billy. I think she's absolutely terrific.
She is great. She's great. Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
What did you make in terms of like Amanda's relationship with Prince Andrew, I guess? And like you said, I think she is a sympathetic character, because she feels like she is like almost a true believer, right? And then like it's like you end up like with that kind of heartbreak maybe when it's not right. So I guess like what did you make of their relationship and like kind of together, I guess? Or did you have insights into it at all? Like maybe not before,
Well,
but
I think they were. I think they were great friends. You know, they worked together for a long time. Amanda Thirsk and Prince Andrew. They worked together very closely. She was a trusted confidant. You know, he trusted her, and she was very fond of him, and they really enjoyed working together. And I think all of that comes across. I loved working with Rufus again. I hadn't worked with him, and I think I only saw him out of his prosthetics and costume once because he finished earlier than me, and so he de-rigged and he came out of the makeup trailer, and I was like, oh my god, I've spent so much time. We did a press morning the other day, and I've still spent 90% more of the time I've ever been with him as Prince Andrew. So it's still quite alarming to see him as himself. But yes, I mean their relationship was a very fond one. I don't know what it is now. I don't know anything about that. But they enjoyed working together. There was great trust there, and I really do think that Amanda wanted everyone to see Prince Andrew as she saw him, and her, have her experience of him, and it didn't go to plan, as we know.
No, it certainly did not. Like I mentioned, the interview, the recreation.
It could have gone really well.
Yeah,
I mean, it could have gone really well. There is a world in which it could have gone really well, but we're not in that world.
Maybe another life. Maybe. I want to ask you about like the recreation of the interview is incredible. I think obviously like the detail that goes into that and stuff. And what was it like? You're obviously in those scenes, but not like you're not in the interview, right? But like to be in those scenes, like what was that like to watch the recreation happening and kind of like, yeah, like how did that whole play out?
Exciting. Yeah. It was so exciting. Such a huge part of the show. It was the thing we were all waiting for, and that's a lot of pressure on Gillian and Rufus, and a lot of pressure on everyone. You know, they're long takes. It's like I did a show called Line of Duty, and some of those takes are 40 minutes long. You know, the 35-page scenes, which for television is extraordinary, and this one was about 15 pages, possibly 10 to 15 pages. It was really dense, and they set up lots of cameras, lots of little cameras, and the main cameras obviously that we were using, but the setup was, I think, almost identical to the one that they had with Newsnight. And so they had all these little cameras, 5 or 6 of them, all running through every take, and I did have, I think, one line in the middle of these 15 pages, which is almost worse than having all the lines in 15-page scene, because you cannot lose concentration. You cannot start thinking about anything else. You have to be totally engaged and never ever miss that cue, for those people who are working so hard. And being so brilliant. And it was a date. It was a date in March something. And of course, inevitably, when we did eventually turn around on me, I think I got the date wrong, of course. So we laughed a lot, and they were brilliant. It was like watching a fantastic sort of game of tennis between them, and it was a great atmosphere on set. It was a very exciting day because people had worked so hard to make it authentic, and it's very exciting to watch brilliant actors like that, and be so up close and personal, and to be part of it, and to sort of lose yourself in it, and to shoot it as we did in long takes was it's amazing. It's amazing. Everybody has to be at the top of their game. The boom up, the camera, everybody has to be on it, and it makes for a very, very exciting day at work.
And it's a very exciting watch. I think it's a riveting sequence and a great film. Scoop. Keeley Hawes plays Prince Andrew's private secretary, Amanda Thirsk. You can watch the movie now on Netflix. Keeley, thank you so much for doing this. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Apologies, I'm in my robe.
Thank you.
Bye.